o'clock. There we go. All right, it is 5 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order, Norfolk Parks Board meeting. I'd like to inform the public about the location of the Opens Meeting Act posted in the council chambers and accessible to members of the public. All right. A roll call, please.
Here.
Just say your name, probably.
Terry Rasmussen.
Angie Bailey here.
Becky Wolf. Austin Truex.
Jarrett Mills.
Melissa Temple.
Andover.
Patrick Gerhardt.
All right, I'll look for a motion and a second to approve the full agenda for tonight.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All not in favor, same sign. All right, also looking for a motion to approve the consideration of approval of the minutes of the July 20th, 2023 Parks Board meeting.
Move to approve minutes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All not in favor, same sign. And then our discussion meeting item tonight is a master plan update and presentation by Pros Consulting.
Okay, this is the first time you probably are going to learn about our master plan process since you became a board. This started actually the same month, about the time we were getting the board together. It started in June, and we've been going through the information gathering stages. Is where we're at right now. We're doing our assessments, and today we're going to present to you kind of where we're at today and kind of what the process is and what to expect moving forward. We still have several months ahead of us on this, and I'm going to introduce William and Leon Younger here. They're here to present from Pros Consulting, and they're a nationally recognized firm that specializes in doing these master plans for Parks and Rec departments throughout the country. And so I will go ahead and leave it at that and have Will come up and Leon and introduce themselves. Thank you.
And Nate, I do have to leave about 5:40, so then everything would go to Melissa, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to kind of share where we're at in the process. Many of you, we had an opportunity to meet either in person or we'll interview you as part of this planning process. Tonight, we just want to highlight, as Nate said, just where we are in our process and answer any questions you have. Plus, we have a little bit of a survey we want to do with you about where you see the park system moving towards in the future. So the first slide basically is we're in the middle of the process. Middle of the process right now. We're in the public engagement. We're just the survey has gone out and it just hit the streets. So that process will usually takes about 6 weeks to finish. We're going to kind of highlight the demographic and trends tonight. We're going to talk about some emerging themes that we've heard, as well as we'll take you through a misdemeanor live polling, just so we get some ideas from you in terms of some of the issues that we're dealing with. And then we'll talk about next steps.
And this is the same presentation we're giving tomorrow night to the public, so we wanted you all to see it first.
Yeah. Okay. So just a little bit about Pros. I mean, Nate pretty much outlined it, but we've been doing this for 28 years and doing park and recreation management consulting across the United States. Prior to that, I was a Parks and Recreation Director in 4 different park systems throughout the United States. My last stint was the Park Director for Indianapolis. And so I have practitioner experience as well as consulting experience. We work with cities, counties, park districts, federal government, national parks, basically doing operation management, consulting, planning work, feasibility studies, things that basically financial plans for park systems. So it really helps them to move forward, and so we feel very honored to have this opportunity to work with you. So what is a Parks and Recreation Master Plan? A lot of people say, well, you know, is this a strategic plan? Is it a master plan? It's kind of a combined process. It basically addresses the vision for the park system, usually done 5 or 10 years in that kind of a time frame. It focuses on land and what you want to do with land and how neighborhood parks, community parks, trails, facilities are basically developed and managed. It also focuses on program services and how programs basically activate your spaces, whether it's a neighborhood park or a community park or doing events like downtown. I know that that's one of the areas of one of the core businesses of the park system now. We also focus on staffing and organizational development, of how the organization actually delivers programs and services. We also focus on funding and how the park system is funded, both on a tax side and on an earned income side, so that basically you're able to maximize the amount of money you do have and put it where it's needed most in the system. We also do a capital plan that looks at your existing parks and where the amenities are in their life cycle, what needs to be updated, added, new, changed out, based on what the community's expectation of the park system is. And so a full capital plan comes with that. We also really, a lot of this is all about public engagement. So not only we do stakeholder interviews, focus group meetings, a full survey. We've got the Mentimeter program that we'll be doing. So we're trying to gather as much information about public expectations. And out of that, really, the plan really takes that approach. We're really trying to make sure it matches up with public expectation and also that it delivers on what people want out of this park system. Great park systems really are huge economic generators for a community. People want to live where they basically have a place to play, and also they feel that the community their services relate to their needs. So we recognize that. So today we're just going to go over, we want to make sure that the engagement of the community is thought through, and we've done as in our scope that is in place. We're using a lot of data sources, so we're using demographics, we're using level of service, we're looking at a lot of data that looks at access, because fairness is always a big issue. I don't care what town you're in, fairness is always a big element. We want to look at your financial and operating preparedness. Sometimes people have great vision, they don't have the dollars to implement or the resources to put it in place. And then we want to make sure you have an action plan. So as Nate and his team comes forward on a yearly basis, they're giving you updates of where they are in the process. The action plan is a living document that gets updated on a yearly basis. And so this plan will have that incorporated in it.
As Leon mentioned, we kind of started this about 2 months ago. So anything in green is either completed or it's in process. So last month, our subconsultant Confluence was here and assessed all the parks and facilities over a 2-day period. It went out with Nate and his team. So we've documented that, and that report's ongoing. The statistically valid survey just started actually on Thursday. Many homes here may have received it. It's the statistically valid survey. 21 came in today, so that today's the first day those have started to come in. A demographics and trends analysis has been completed, which I'll kind of go through a high-level review of that. Nate has sent out a comparative benchmark analysis comparing where Norfolk is in relation to 5 or 6 other peer communities. Many of you were in state focus groups when we were here in June, so it's good to see some familiar faces. And we've done a lot of one-on-ones with the city council and other partnership organizations that Nate and his team work with. Tomorrow we're going to be going through an operations review with some staff, and then ultimately the public meeting tomorrow night. So, and then in the fall, my guess is probably October, early November, we'll be back to present the results of the survey findings as well as some preliminary recommendations before we get to the holidays. Ultimately, with this kind of wrapping up in that February-ish of 24, which is right on schedule with what we had. So in regards to demographics, we look at this in any community that we are in, but it's really, it's good to look to see, is the population growing? Norfolk obviously has some steady population growth, not a lot, but it is a slight increase year over year. And you can see the increase from the 2010 census to the 2020, and that right below 1%, 0.5% over the next 10 to 20 years. It's a slightly aging community, which is similar to the United States in general, but it's good to look at this as it relates to programs, as well as ensuring that the department offers programs for all age segments. So it's always good to look to see kind of how the demographics of a community are changing. There's some slight diversification. If you look especially on the 2010 to 2020, you can kind of see a jump in the 2 or more races, and that's going to be pretty consistent over the next 10 years. And we also need to look at median household income as it relates to pricing and things. Norfolk is below state and national and average as it relates to comparative income, so it's always good to take that into considerations as it relates to pricing. So we also look at local recreation trends. So anything red or above red's considered the national average. But so you can see Norfolk's an active community. So volleyball, football, golf are all slightly at the national average or slightly higher than the national average in those sports. Now, as it relates to fitness, anything above that, again, that red line, so walking for exercise is right at the national average, weightlifting, yoga, you're right at the normal trend line as it relates. And this data comes from credit card spending for products, sporting goods stuff. So all of that comes into consideration, and that's how this calculation's figured out. And swimming is also above the national average. For outdoor activity, by far, fishing, canoe kayaking, archery, so your more outdoor adventure type activities are all above national average as well. And then we also look at just general commercial recreation spending. So if you look at, visited indoor water parks is above that. And you can see like where, it's good to look to see how commercial recreation dollars are spent. So visited a zoo, went overnight camping, spent money on equipment, all of those are right above that $100 national or 100 national average. Now, community engagement, as we mentioned, we were here in June and we participated on 2 days of focus groups with many of you were in attendance at that. So we had the community focus groups. The statistically valid survey is out on the street currently, and we should get those results here in the next 4 to 5 weeks. Once we hit our goal for that, there'll be an online survey, so you all will receive a link when that is open, but we want to have that after the statistically valid survey results come in so there's no confusion. So then that will also be another data point we'll be looking at here in the next month or two. And then we also, like I said, we had the staff focus groups, elected officials, partnership organizations. We had one-on-one virtual meetings with them or when we were here in June.
The statistically valid survey matches the demographics of your community plus or minus 4%. So when you see the results of the survey, we will show you how closely the demographics of your community align to the questions. Okay.
Now, again, as related to community focus groups, these are some of the folks that we met with back in June. Over the 2-day period, we conducted 5 community focus groups with a variety of stakeholder groups, 16 one-on-one stakeholder interviews with elected officials, some members of the park board that were unable to attend those. We did those virtually as well. And then we also did a staff SWOT analysis with Nate and his team. So some priorities that kind of came out, this is some emerging themes. There's a lot of pride in parks and improving and how they contribute to the quality of life of the city. The parks has an abundance of parkland and the level of maintenance is pretty strong. Great facilities, and you've got Skyview, Tahazuka, Aquaventure. Those are some signature parks and facilities that the public really cares for. Areas of the system that need focus, life cycle replacement in some of the parks. We heard a lot for updated restrooms and lighting from a parking lot standpoint. Additional focus on some sports fields was mentioned. As it relates to connectivity, we heard that from a lot of participants was just finishing a connected trail system. There's some great great trails, but they would like to see all the linkages completed. As it relates to programming, it's to broaden year-round programs with some semi-focus on teens, sports, seniors, and community-wide special events. And we also heard don't compete with the YMCA, be complementary to what they offer. So that was all, as a partnership organization with the city. Outcomes desired was new amenities in some parks that are kind of feeling tired. Trail connectivity. Additional indoor facilities for year-round programming, whether that be with partnering with other organizations in the city. An aquatic center was brought up, and then again improvements to the key parks like Tahazuka, Johnson, and Skyview parks. I know there's a major overhaul going on at Johnson Park right now. Confluence, our subconsultant, was here last month, and as mentioned, they did a full inventory and asset conditions of the parks system. We're going to use this information, as Leon mentioned, for the level of service standards, and when we get the community feedback on the survey, it's good to kind of see where we prioritize the need in that level of service. So when we're back in a month or two, we'll definitely be walking through that with you all. And again, they went through and They looked at the medians that are maintained by the parks. They looked at every single park and updated all of the inventory. So we've got, we know that it's accurate moving forward with what is in the system. Which again, as I mentioned, that's what is going to roll up in the level of service. So, and ultimately a full summary document that will be an appendix of the summary report. And then we'll then get into, as Leon mentioned, the capital improvement plan. And we have 3 tiers that we use for that. One is just sustainable, just to maintain what the park system is currently, and what will that cost. Expanded services is looking at, like, if you wanted to add a new feature to the system that's not already in an existing park, that's kind of a middle tier. And then some visionary alternatives. So that could be like a major indoor facility of some type that is a higher dollar amount than just the normal maintaining what the park system is in its current state. So now we're going to do the Mentimeter. So if anyone's got a smartphone, if you can either hit the QR code, or if you don't want to do that, you can go to menti.com and enter that code. And we have some questions that we're going to kind of mention. When you do get logged in, if you can hit the little heart, it'll allow me to kind of know how many people are participating.
We've got 3, 4,
Yeah.
5,
So,
6.
and again, if you can't get to it, you can go to either menti.com, or if you can try and hit the QR code. I was able to hit it from the back of the room earlier, so you folks that are here should be able to get it. But I'll give it another
6, 7.
give it another minute to allow any other folks to join.
10.
Has everyone been able to get on that wants to get on?
10.
All right, we'll get going then. So we're gonna ask for contact information. Mainly this is for the public tomorrow night, so that way we are able to keep everyone up to date as it relates to when our next meetings are, when the online survey's out. We can shoot that out to them. So that's why we're asking for contact information, just so we can keep the public up to speed as we work through the next, really last 5-6 months of the process. I'll give it another 30 seconds to make sure everyone's able to get it in. All right. So now we get to the questions. This is the fun part. Okay, so what is your gender? Female, male, other, and prefer not to answer. Great. And what age segment are you in? Didn't think we'd have a lot of 0 to 17s with this one. All right. All right, so icebreaker question. What's your favorite part of living in Norfolk? Family, community feel, hometown. Community feel, family. Schools, it's a good one. A lot of quality of life. Great. Excellent. So now we're going to get into usage and quality. If you're already logged in, you don't need to get back. So we'll get into some other questions here in a second. So how often annually do you use the city's parks, trails, or amenities? At least weekly, at least monthly? And these are similar questions that we are asking on the survey, but we want to try and ask these in many different ways, so as it relates to usage. Weekly? At least monthly. Great. So which neighborhood parks do you use regularly? So the follow-up question is going to be more on the larger regional parks and signature facilities, but which neighborhood parks do you use?
Will, could you give the definition of a neighborhood park for
Yeah,
them?
so neighborhood park is a smaller one that's going to have a,
Usually
1 hour,
1 hour experience, 10 acres or less.
so not like your Skyview or Taha, the smaller ones that are closer to your, yeah. Great.
Great.
Embrace Park's a nice park. I'm not surprised by that. Great. Now, which community, regional, and special use parks do you use regularly? So again, these are your main Taha, Skyview, yeah, sports complexes, Memorial Park.
Can we include Johnson's Park even though we haven't been able to use it?
In the past.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
That's great.
Skyview, I'm not surprised. All right, so which programs and events do you attend regularly? So, you know, obviously the firework Big Bang Boom, is it the farmer's market, some of the car shows, festivals, youth activities, family activities, swim lessons, hometown holidays?
Great.
Excellent. So farmer's market, festivals, and Big Bang Boom. Right. How would you rate the overall quality of the Norfolk Parks and Rec system? So this can be in regards to the whole system, parks, programs, facilities. All right, good. Now, do you live within a 10-minute walk to a park or trail? That's really strong. 10. That's great. Well, now, how do you travel to your nearest local park if you do not? Is it walk, run, teleport? It's a joke. Bike, public transportation. All right. Now, rate your satisfaction on the overall quality you receive from Norfolk's Parks and Recreation? Are you very satisfied, somewhat satisfied, neutral, somewhat dissatisfied? Don't know. Okay, somewhat satisfied. So what are the three most preferred ways you would want to learn about Norfolk's parks, recreation facilities, and/or trails? So this is really about trying to figure out what's the best way to market and communicate with website, department program guide. Kind of lump social media, so that could be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, /X. Okay, so website, social media. Great. Now, what are the three largest barriers that prevent you from using the park system more often? So are you too busy? Do you not feel safe? Do you not feel welcome? Do you not know what is offered? Lack of wayfinding, too far from residents, lack of restrooms, lack of parking, lack of indoor recreation space. Okay, so time, too busy. Lack of indoor rec space and lack of amenities, and do not know what, too busy, okay? So this is future needs. So which three facilities or amenities are you or members of your household most interested in? So would this be an amphitheater event space, aquatic facility, additional dog parks, fitness center, indoor rec space, more parks, picnic areas, more playgrounds, sport courts, sport fields, and trails? So we've got 8. Wait a few more seconds for everyone to answer this one. So we've got 10. So trails, indoor space, aquatic facility, and event space. Now, what would be the top 3 types of programs you would be most interested in participating in? Would that be 50+ activities, adult sports, adult recreation, aquatics, farmers market, fitness, inclusive therapeutic, outdoor recreation, special events, social services, youth camps, youth enrichment, youth sports, arts, nature education, and outdoor adventure?
What's the difference between outdoor recreation and outdoor adventure?
Outdoor adventure would be more like,
Your water facility, anything that has to do with climbing, BMX, that,
canoe kayaking would be outdoor adventure,
yeah, I mean, when you get into outdoor recreation, education, it's, birding and basically hiking. It's more self-directed, but not with an amenity that helps you, so that's the difference.
Good question. All right, so outdoor adventure, nature education, and aquatics being the top 3. Now this would be, what are the 3 most important improvements you'd like to see the park system make over the next 10 years? So would it be additional ADA accessibility, expand and connect the trail system, indoor aquatic facility, indoor recreation space, outdoor fitness, outdoor pools, parking, restrooms, shade structures, signage and wayfinding, sport courts, sport fields, and better walking, biking access? All right, so expand and connect the trail system, walking, biking access, indoor aquatic facility, and indoor rec space. Great. All right.
Okay.
That's
So-
it for the Menti polling. Thank you
Any
for
questions about
participating.
This, and we'll be doing this tomorrow. And any questions about our process of doing the computer?
Will you like screenshot the results, kind of?
Yeah, it exports in like Excel and PDF. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're able to use that and like actually, we'll be able to look at it from what you all said. Anyone taking it, and this will be open for like, I think I left it open for 7 days. If anyone's watching on video, they can continue to participate. And the same goes for tomorrow evening as well with the public.
Thank you.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. Can you talk again about how you got the data on the activities that people in Norfolk participate in? Like I noticed book club was on there.
So
fishing,
that
how do you get
comes
that
from
information?
Esri. When we buy the data from
Okay.
Esri, which is a big GIS database,
Esri.
and what it does is we get the demographic data, and then we also get the local trend data from that, and Esri then get that through credit card spending in a community. So that way they're able to see what the purchases are that people make, and then that's how they figure out what's over what is national average.
Even if it's something free like fishing or reading a book at the library.
Yeah, they would look at
Yeah.
like, the number of like fishing poles bought at a sporting goods store, or so that's kind of what in the community is what's purchased at a higher amount than what's normal. So,
I was also really surprised at the financial demographics in Norfolk and the disparity between
the
national
state,
averages.
yeah.
How do you think that will affect, I guess, how you design this
More self-directed
master plan?
type of amenities.
Mhm.
You have to be really careful not to over-design, because, you can over-design a golf course. If you play golf, a high-end golf course costs a lot of money to maintain and operate versus a general public golf course that can basically serve the masses, but it's easier to play and typically lower costs. So, you really have to, what I call, price to the lowest level possible to get the greatest amount of users. And so you have to be really cognizant of that.
good question.
So the statistically valid survey we said goes first, but anybody on the online survey, anybody in the community can fill it out. And then we'll compare the two. So here's what the online statistically valid survey said, but this is anybody in the community. So nobody can say that they didn't get a chance to fill it out. Okay, just want, because if somebody asks you, well, I didn't get a chance, you do have a chance through the online survey. Okay, and then I think that the level of service is always a good eye opener. It really demonstrates how equitable and fair you are, and where you're really strong and where areas need support. And then you're matching through the survey. It's called a priority rankings. It'll tell you where people want you to spend your money in what areas. And so you're able, through the level of service, compare that with the data we get from the survey. Okay, and then I think the operational review is always good because, I mean, being a park board, it's important that you understand how the system operates and what its strengths, what its weaknesses, what do they really scratch at to try to get things done, and then really getting a good understanding of how park systems are funded across the United States and how that might have application and fit into your value system here, and then really making sure that you get an implementation plan that you're satisfied with that really addresses the key things. And then really it's up to the staff to put it in place, and they'll all need your support along the way.
How long will the survey be available, and what's your goal statistically for involvement in that?
Well, we want to have at a minimum 350 completed surveys to make it statistically valid. But if 600 people fill it out on the mail, because the way the survey is set up now, you get it in the mail, you can send it back in because it gives a postage-free stamp envelope. You can take it online, you can take it by your phone, and if you speak a different language, you can call in and they'll take it over your survey over the phone. So you have 4 ways to basically reply to it. But the online survey is strictly through the website.
That'll come out as soon as we hit the goal with
Once
statistically
we
valid
hit the
survey.
goal, then
Yeah, we use a firm called an ETC Institute out of Kansas City, and we've done, 500 system
Sure.
plans with them. And
they're the largest park and recreation survey company in the United States. Well, the statistically valid survey, we'd like to have them in the next 3 weeks to have.
It's usually 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, usually 3 to 4 weeks, and it takes 2 weeks for them to put the report together. So it's an 8-week process.
And then the online, we usually leave it open for 3 to 4 weeks. And it really comes down to see how we can kind of see when it levels off, based off of Nate and PJ and everyone shooting it out on social media. We can kind of see when is it not really making an impact, and that's usually when we shut that off. Good question.
Does this study look at use of the parks from non-resident, people that are from outside the city? I know we get a lot of people that come, to use the Cowboy Trail. I expect that there's probably going to be some kayakers coming from elsewhere once we get that done. There's probably other things that I'm not thinking of right now.
We can buy the data that basically of what other people are doing in your community in terms of when they're here, like campers, where they come from, sports people, teams that come in and play. We can buy that data. It's not in our scope, but we can buy it. Right now, we're really just focused on the people who live here
Community.
as the primary focus and target, because they're the ones who basically expect the most out of the park system. But we can access that data. And maybe the Visitors Bureau, we can work with them, because a lot of times the Visitors Bureau have really good data on hotels and what people are spending. And most of it's really spending by credit card in your town for dinners, lunches, whatever.
Okay. That seems like a pretty important question for the community and for the businesses, and how are we using our money to to bring those dollars in to help the community more?
Certainly we can do it. I mean, park systems have an economic impact. I mean, we work with a lot of systems where when they give the annual report to their councils and to their park boards, they focus on the economic impact of the park system, not just on proximity like housing values, because if you live next to a park, your house typically has a higher value than 3 blocks away. But the other thing is the economic value of what people spend in your town for special events that they stay over, for what they spend at the campground, what they spend, for any tournaments that are held in the city. Then we can address it.
Yes, and we can talk with the chamber and
Yeah.
and see what data,
We can
information
get
we
the data
already
so
have,
that's
yep.
hard. We just didn't put it in the scope. Other question? Well, I know this is your 3rd meeting, so let me just tell you, I've been in front of a lot of park boards in my life, and I've also been a park board member. And what was really interesting when I was in Indianapolis, the director of the Indianapolis Park System is the chairman of the park board. So just sharing with you, that's a unique situation, but you've got a great responsibility, and I wish you all well, and we'll look forward to catching up to you again.
And again, that'll probably be October, November, we'll be back with all, to share those results.
I just want to see if there's any questions from the public maybe before we have you sit down. Yep. All right.
Okay, thanks.
Do I need a plug up there? I need a plug up.
All right, we'll move on to other business, the supervisor reports.
Okay, we'll start with parks. That'd be okay.
Parks?
Can we get the screen switched?
Since our last park board meeting, you know, we're doing the regular mowing and the weed eating and picking up trash on a weekly basis. We did set up and clean up for an August 3rd Music in the Park at Skyview. We met with Nate and the arborist, and we picked out 6 spots between 4th and 5th Street on Norfolk Avenue, 3 on each side for trees that'll be going in this fall. We removed the old playground equipment from Liberty Bell with some old swings, and it was old stuff, but made way for the new Kaboom playground thing. Had a tree board meeting. We dug out down there at the skate park for the pump track. We helped, about everybody in the park division helped with the Kaboom event, you know, whether running for stuff and getting stuff, and it was a team effort. We had our final concert down at River Point Square. They're continuing to have their farmers market. I think that goes maybe till the end of September. A lot of tree watering. We did have some beneficial rains at the end of July and August, but that hot weather is making it a chore. We're in the process of we're getting the stuff ready to make a new playground fall surface at Central Park. We'd remove the sand and put the certified wood chips in there, be safer. We got a bid, and I'm waiting to hear back from a guy, and we're gonna pave up at the Skyview shop. And then we got most all of our irrigation supplies bought we're gonna do the west side of the new playground up at Skyview. We did the east side towards the parking lot. We're gonna do the west side. And then where the Liberty Bell pool was, we're gonna irrigate that too. And it's just a matter of getting time. And that's about where we're at right now. Any questions?
Yeah, with the concrete by the shop at Skyview, what will that entail? I noticed that as people were going in there for parking, it's kind of getting deteriorated in that driveway right there.
Yeah, what we'll do is the width of the building, we'll pave it to the east, and then we'll curve it out and hook up to the asphalt road out in front of, to the south of there.
Okay. As people come from the east currently, when they pull into that area for parking, they have to take a really sharp right to get around that corner and then get back in.
Mm-hmm.
Can we kind of straighten that out just a little bit? If it was like a 90-degree turn, it'd be a lot better than, it's something higher than a 90-degree turn right now.
It's something we can look at, and you'll have to show me specifically. I'll have to get a look at that.
Were you able to have any recycling bins out for the Music in the Park or the River Point Square concert? We talked about that a couple meetings ago, but okay.
We don't have we don't have any recycling bins,
Mm-hmm.
so we didn't put any out.
Okay. Maybe we can work on that for next year.
Norfolk doesn't have a recycling company. So there's no, I mean, I've recycled for years, but I know people that take it to Neely because we don't have one unless you pay to have it picked up. And I don't know if the city can afford to do that.
Yeah, we have to, I guess, work with John's or another private company that does do recycling.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I know, I have to take it to Madison.
yeah.
Okay, we'll have Ryan do the sports complex.
We've been pulling and spraying a lot of puncture vine and sandburrs this summer. I don't know why we're getting so bad on them, it's just because it's hot or what. Spraying and weed eating the lake and banks, trying to keep the water cleaner out there, so that's looking a little bit better. Been working on bids for the Field 2 backstop project. I got MPPD working on it. I should hear this week on when they're gonna be able to do it. And they're just actually coming in and putting the big poles in. We'll have to do all the rest of the work ourselves, but we just don't have the machinery to dig the big holes. The signage for the campground and dog park, I actually installed the sign this morning, so that's actually done. And I think I said last time, we made some little flower beds around the entrance there to kind of dress that up a little bit. And I've had a guy blowing it off a couple times a week just to keep that from getting, dirty and stuff. We mow daily, constantly mowing, cleaning facilities daily, maintenance of the park, just whatever comes up, I have to jump on that. With the heat, like Mike was saying, last week we had a couple people watering trees and flowers pretty much the entire week, just to keep the flowers from dying because we don't have a lot of irrigated flowers. So, trash runs twice weekly, Mondays and Fridays. Picnic shelters and cabins, we clean those as needed. Field prep for games, that's a daily thing. Sprinkler maintenance, almost daily it seems like anymore. In the last couple weeks, I had to work on getting the supplies and the tool purchases for the Kaboom project. Just gathering all the wood and the things that they needed. The cleanup at Liberty Bell, we took care of that on Friday, we finished that up. Working with the contractors, that's just to get the bids for the Field 2 project. Last Friday, we had to do the layout and install the border at Liberty Bell, and that was a 6-man project just to get that done. We started Friday morning, got it done and cleaned up Friday afternoon so they could open it Saturday. I've been working with the campground host a lot on some of the issues she's having out there with people and some of the problems she's having with some of the people we've had to remove. Mower maintenance, that's just trying to get in there and get that cleaned up. It's hard to get in there and get that cleaned up when we have people in there all the time. Working on the state boiler inspection violations, that wasn't really a violation. It was, we were just missing a piece of paperwork when we had the 2 new boilers put in. The state actually requires we have a data sheet with the new boilers. And so I was just, I had to work with the contractor and with the manufacturer of the boilers to get that paperwork and get that into the state so they could certify the boilers. It wasn't really a violation of any sort. It was just, we had to get that done by a certain date. We got that done, so that is actually completed now too. Order and install of pole padding on Field 4, that's actually done now too. I got that done last week, so. Like Mike was saying, we're working on some Central Park projects. Redoing some paths up there and getting bids for that and getting the wood ordered to do the barriers around the playgrounds and things like that, so. That's where I'm at right now.
Any questions for sports?
You said you had to work with the campground host on,
Oh, just because we have people that come in and we have to,
and that's part of your job, not like the police? Or, I mean,
well, I won't get into that, but I mean, we have to, there's just a fine line what they can do and what they can't, so.
Yeah.
We have people that'll try to camp out in the shelters and we'll have to remind them they need to move on, and sometimes they go and sometimes they fight us a little bit. And so this last week it's been kind of a, I don't want to say daily, but it's been more than normal, so.
All right, we'll go ahead and PJ will talk about recreation.
We installed the playground at Liberty with Premier Marketing and Integrity and the Kaboom Project. We got our fall brochure complete and printed. We have 22 programs this fall. We got it out to all the local schools. The pump track construction started. The completion date should be around middle to late September for that. Bleachers at Memorial Field were repaired. There was a section that the wood was rotted on the home side, so we fixed that issue. Fall sports have begun for concessions at Taha and Memorial. We fixed the sprinklers that we had to disconnect when we put the turf in the infield at Memorial Field. And we laid sod along there next to the bullpen in another area that we had to address and add some dirt on to make it level. We did a major top dressing at Memorial Field. We did 60 tons last week. And that's adding sand to the field to make it level, and we have to build it up a little bit. We adjusted Aquaventure hours from 11:30 to 5, and we're open on weekends through Labor Day weekend. So Monday will be our last day. Tuesday is dog days. We have participated in the back to school bash this weekend with Briggs and Barrett, and that went over well. And the netting for the backstop, a ride for Memorial Field. So we'll work with Northeast on that and getting that installed.
Anything else?
Do you have any questions?
I see the $2,000 donation for side projects at Liberty. Has that been designated?
That was for the benches and the picnic tables that we built that day. Some of the parts that the staff and Ryan went and got was for those side projects that the volunteers put together.
Okay, I'll go ahead and give the department report. I had some things highlighted, and most of these have been mentioned. So I do want to mention the lawn conversion program that we have offered and our retree program for homeowners to plant trees in their terraces. We're going to have a couple of public classes on those coming up in September. We'll get that information out with Nick and his with communications and get that on social media. So that'll be coming up next month. We've got the Skyview Dock RFP process is complete, and we've selected Huff Construction to move forward on that project, and we're working through the contract there, and hopefully we'll have something soon. We'll have a design probably for the board to look at and a location next month. We should be able to have that for you. Skate park. Pump track has started. They're forming that up. They'll be pouring the concrete soon. It's about a 4-week process. We're a week and a half into that. So if you get out and look at that, it's a pretty neat project that's going on out there. The ARPA grant was awarded for the Johnson Park improvements of $2 million to finish, so to get us over that finish line. A lot of the projects were coming in over budget because of inflation and different things, but these dollars will help us finish up all the projects that we wanted to do, including getting some final landscaping and some signage in there, dealing with the old mill building, the wheelhouse there, and also the ice rink, fountain, the bridge, all funded through that. So that was a really good to see that from Senator Dover and the mayor's efforts to get those funds over here in our community. Working on 2024 fees. I know we talked about a couple of work sessions, but we were able to push that back till December. So we're going to be discussing that at our next 2 meetings, and hopefully have that approved by the November meeting, and then off to council in December. So that pretty much sums up the department report. We will be meeting again tomorrow night at 5 p.m. at the library, 5:30 p.m. at the library. We'll have the same presentation. People will be able to interact and be a part of the process. We'll stick around afterwards, as we will tonight, if any of the public wants to come talk to staff and give us their input or thoughts about our master plan process or things they want to see. We'd be happy to hear that. We'll take notes and give those to Pros Consulting. So that's it. Any questions?
I'm curious. So the Liberty Bell Park public build-a-day, that was the Kaboom project, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, and what was the public involvement as far as community volunteers that showed up?
PJ, you want to talk to that?
Premier had a big role in the volunteers. They did a great job, and it was a lot of their businesses and Integrity and McMill. They all came together and came out. They have a program through their company that they actually get paid for their volunteer hours. They get to turn those in as working hours, and they encourage them to get involved heavily in the community. So a lot of them was that. We had some kids that came after school, was out, and there was some other just community members that came out to help and support that project, and it was a great process to be involved in, and it was very, very neat to see everybody come together like that. So
I was wondering, we talked about doing a park tour when we first started the board. Are we still going to do that?
Yes, we hopefully getting that set up. I'll follow up with that and make sure that we get those scheduled. Yep.
Okay, because after last month's meeting with the fees and all that, I went out and I checked out the softball complex, and I don't understand why people complain about it. And so
I'd be happy
I need more information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
We just wrapped up the budget process, so a lot of time has come off that's a time-consuming process on my end. So we can get those set up and get those scheduled. Yeah.
I just want to say, thanks to everybody who worked on the ARPA funds. That's awesome. Really excited about that project. But I also was going to ask about the disc golf club meeting at Taha. To what extent is the Parks Department involved with that?
Yep. I'll let.
I met out there with a couple gentlemen involved in disc golf, and we talked about a volunteer day to address some of the concerns they had. There is some baskets that are raised above the ground that the sports crew is going to be working on to put those in ground, so when they're level with the ground, they've just been pushed up over the years. There was some caps missing on some of the baskets you're able to lift up and move and put into a different hole. So that was addressed as well. They were concerned about some of the benches that were placed along the trail. Well, it's for the disc golf people to be able to rest or sit when they're waiting. But some of those benches were placed behind baskets and in the fairway. So they just asked, we just went over those things moving and things like that, and cutting down some of the weeds. They're just really tall this year from all the rain that we've received. So the vegetation is just kind of, it's a little taller to be able to see than it normally was. So, and I am working with them on setting that day up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Was one other item I wanted to mention here. It's the LWCF grant. We are getting that submitted. That's due on Friday, and that is for, we're going to use our we have $1.6 million going into the softball complex, so we're going to leverage those dollars as a match to get a new field built. Fields 4 and 5 are not they're not regulation fields. They've been cut off by the roads, and so we need to build additional adult fields. We can't keep overusing fields 1, 2, and 3. You can't keep up with it. It's hard to maintain a field that's used as much as those 3 fields are. So we want to get those other 2 replaced and get another 3-plex probably across the road. At some point we'll have a design for the board, and we can look at location specifically, but that'll come in time.
You mentioned delaying the conversation on the fees. At what point do you need to go before council if you do raise those?
It would be December, but we could delay it a little bit if we needed to, but the goal would be December. The reason why is because our brochure comes out in January. We want to make sure our fees are done. That's really what we're trying to do.
Could you talk a little bit about the Trails Committee plan? There's a bullet for that. Any updates? I know we talked about it at our last meeting.
Yep. It's, so some of these that stick around on my current projects I've got a full plate. So we're just trying to get to that.
Okay.
We don't even, all the terms are expired on that board. And so we got to start the process from the beginning and get that started up. And then we did talk about, this board talked about maybe combining it into the Parks and Rec board. That's going to be a whole nother process because we have to change the city ordinance, city code to do that. So we'll see if that's something that council wants to go to. We'll have to talk to them and maybe at a subcommittee meeting and see where they stand and what they would like to see us do with that. So, but for now, we have to do one or the other, combine them or start it up, and that's something that I've got to get moving on.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, Nate.
Because I think we did make a motion and approve it at last meeting that we would integrate.
Yep. So, but it'll still take it would take a while to change the
Sure,
city code.
yeah.
That would take several months.
Right.
So in the meantime, we may just resurrect the trail board temporarily and see what direction we want to go long term. I don't have a long term. I don't know what that solution is because it'd be up to council. So, yeah.
Well, it would make sense that it would fall under this because it is all one,
Yes.
rec is trails. So to have two entities trying to make decisions on really talking about the same things at some points doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yep. So I'll keep you posted as we get that process moving.
Nate, do you have, or maybe just go over it again, that lawn conversion program? What is that?
So the lawn conversion program is, we have up to $1,000 match for anyone who wants to convert from a traditional lawn into a no-mow lawn or a rain garden. And rain garden would be something that collects water with a depression or rocks depression or some prairie grasses. If you want to plant those. So if you're doing any of those landscape projects, if you were going to invest, let's say $2,000, we'll match up to $1,000 of that.
So, and where does that funding come from? Just straight out of
That comes from the
budget, or-
WaterWise program, as we have a $25,000 grant from WaterWise to do that project. Yes.
How many people have used it so far?
So far, we haven't gotten any use. That's why we're going to have a class.
Okay.
Yep. We have interest, though. We've had a few people interested, but it does take time because they do have to bring in a plan and then they do have to, start working on the project and then come ask for a reimbursement.
Okay, are there any other matters that want to be discussed?
That's it.
No? All right, well, I hope to see everybody tomorrow night at the library. We will adjourn this meeting at 5